In honour of our 30th year anniversary, I'm sat here with the founder of Prolight, Andrew, who's also my dad, to discuss how Prolight started and how we've got to where we are today. So let's start with the very early days of Prolight. Can you take us back to the very beginning? How did Prolight start? Where were you based and what products were you initially selling?
Okay, so we're back to 1989 when I started my own DJ company, supplying DJs in the local area, Premier Sound and Light in Bolton. That was successful in its own right, and within that company then I started to look for items that no other DJ stores had, and that got me to my first trip to Poland to link up with a company called Discotheque and importing their items first of all. Off the back of that, DJs were then going to other DJ companies in the area trying to buy those effects. Obviously, DJs being DJs, obviously trying to get them cheaper at the time, and there being no internet. I then started receiving calls from other DJ stores asking, could we supply trade? From there, I decided to launch a trade side supplying these effects. That steadily grew up to the point of my DJ store being full, not being able to get any more stock in there, and I would first move over to Bury, Lancashire. At that point, then that's where Prolight started and was stood on its own 2 feet. And subsequently, a few years later, I decided to actually close the DJ store to concentrate on the actual distribution side. Just due to the fact of the growth, and I just could not allot the time to 2 businesses, and I really wanted to just focus on one business fully. First product started coming in from Poland, from a company called Discotheque, who were ultimately making some items nobody else was making. We were with them for a few years, and with that then I started importing some items from Europe, again different items that were not available.
Were these all lighting items?
Everything initially was lighting, with the exception, I seem to remember, of 2 stands and 2 pieces of aluminium trussing that went across the top as a budget gantry system for DJs. All those items amazingly successful, and that in itself then led me to start expanding the range. And one day I started seeing a few other companies bringing items in from Taiwan. This is pre anything being made in China. With that, I just decided to jump on an aeroplane and head out to Taiwan. Never even left the UK before. Arrived in Taiwan and jumped in a car to a hotel, got to the hotel, picked up the yellow pages and scrolled for disco lighting manufacturers. In there I found a couple of companies, one of those being Acme, who became absolutely probably our top supplier, and at the time had some outstanding effects, and again different to what other people had done. With that, over the next 5 or 6 years in Taiwan, we then continued to add more Taiwanese suppliers. With that then, going forward, China started to open up, and even the Taiwan suppliers started to move to China. We moved over to China with the Taiwan suppliers and added more and more. Business continued to grow. With that, more and more stores. At this time, it was all pretty well music stores and DJ stores were supplying into, nothing really into the events industry or the installation industry. Whilst we were at Bury for 6 years, that took us on nicely over to another move over to Darwin in Lancashire. That then we went from, I think we had 6,000 square feet at Bury, where we then went to 36,000 square feet over at Darwin.
So quite a considerable growth.
I have to be honest, as I was stood there viewing the property, Susan, my wife, is like, this is great, and I'm stood there going, never in the memory of man are we going to fill this building. We're going to need to rent out some of the space. Little did I know, 6 years further down the line,
We need to move again.
we'd be moving again, and off we went over to Blackburn again in Lancashire.
So what inspired you to launch your first in-house brand?
That decision was taken on the fact that with our own in-house brand, we had total control of the products. At this point, we were sourcing the products, so they needed a brand as they came into the UK and for us to distribute them. We didn't just want to be taking off the peg Chinese items. We were making changes, modifications, innovation, improvements to them. So we wanted to launch a brand where, as we went along, we could then add more to it, and along with the brand growing, also with the product range.
Okay, and what was that first brand?
The first brand actually came in under Prolite's own name. That brand ran quite successfully for a number of years. It was only as we started adding more and more different items, including some audio, we decided to start splitting the brands out and giving different products different brands and identities, and Prolite ultimately being the distributor.
What drove the decision to move into a more professional market, and how did that change the trajectory of the company?
So for a good number of years, we carried on supplying the DJs, DJ companies, music stores, installers, and that was amazingly successful for us, taking Prolite to the top of its game. With its products and the innovation we had, we were way ahead of anybody else in this field. Off the back of that, we started to see a decline in actual bars, restaurants and entertainment venues, and slowly we could see the actual sales slipping away. At this point, we decided to start investing in and looking at other markets that were still within the industry, and where we could actually take the brands we'd started.
Right, okay. And obviously the company from when you started it 30 years ago has grown and evolved massively. How has it grown and evolved since its original location in Bolton, all the way through to the move Bury, Darwin, Blackburn, and now where we are housed at Edison Point in Colne?
Wow. If I think back to the early days, it was myself and one other person. When we start looking, at the growth across the years, it's been, on a really steady trajectory to where we are now at Edison Point, and 45 members of staff. What the years have actually flown by. I cannot believe that 30 years have elapsed of this journey that is Prolite. When I look, like I say, there was me and one member of staff, and I was packing boxes. I was even writing shipping labels, because they weren't even on a computer system at that time.
No.
Right up to when I look at it now, where we've got multiple packing stations, we've got multiple freight carriers in at the end of the day. The amount of incoming freight at Edison Point is just incredible. Whereas it was when we got our first container in that came in from Taiwan, it was incredible to think that was a 20-foot shipping container, and wow, we've been able to afford a 20-foot shipping container. It has been just an amazing journey.
Yeah, but I think what's good about Prolite as well is the fact that you started it and there was another member of staff and you will be picking and packing, etc. However, now if there is extra help needed, you will happily go and help out the staff downstairs in the warehouse to get orders out the door, or whether that be sorting something else in the building, etc.
I do still like to be involved and get back on the tools. I do. I do like an hour or two in the packing departments every now and then, just to challenge myself as a specialist to how many items I can fit into a carton, and just how many I can actually pack myself within an hour or two. So yeah, I still really enjoy this, and although a lot of my days now taken up with the suppliers and meetings, definitely it's still going down in the warehouse, and I do actually still genuinely enjoy.
Which I think is a good inspiration for the rest of the staff that we have, to see the MD of the company and the founder of the company still getting involved in day-to-day business.
Yeah, ultimately, we are a customer-centric business, and if we find out it's 4 o'clock, we're running behind with the orders, and there's through just being a very, very busy day, for me, I'd rather go and put an hour in myself and make sure those orders dispatch than actually let customers down. Still, I'm focused on making sure the name of the game we have here at Prolight is, can we get every single order off the printer before we leave at night?
Yeah. So, what were the key milestones that signalled the business was entering a new phase of growth?
I think probably when we were at Blackburn, where when we moved in at Blackburn, we were primarily DJ effects.
Yeah.
As to when we were ready for leaving Blackburn, and we were physically bulging at the seams, we'd had to take on remote warehousing.
Yeah.
And you then loop around the warehouse at the actual, not only the actual lighting fixtures, but also the other items we'd added, whether that be trussing, whether that be staging, clamps, some a small amount of cables. At that point, you could see the business was starting to take a different direction.
Yeah. Okay. And who was our first major brand partner? How did the relationship between Prolight and that brand partner come about?
So the first major brand partner was Global Truss. I'd known one of the actual founders of Global Truss, as he was the second person I met on my initial trip to Taiwan. But at that point, Global Truss wasn't even a company.
Right, okay.
When he went forward to set up the company, the actual, for us, trussing for DJs, it really was very, very minimal on sales. It was only later then, as we started moving into the professional market, that the actual trussing numbers rocketed to where it is now, and the actual monstrous stocks of Global Truss products we hold.
Yeah. And today we work with other leading brands such as ADJ, Laser World, Netgear, Allen and Heath, to name a few. But how have these partnerships developed, and what do they mean for the business now going forward?
A few years ago, we were seeking out items that we thought were missing from our range. You take maybe Kuza VMB as a good example.
Yeah.
Well respected international brands, and we as a company didn't have an offering of stands, so we'd gone to them and tied up the distribution for these items. In the last couple of years, it's been really surprising for me that we're now being approached by major industry leading companies to distribute their brands.
Yeah.
When I first started the company, the Prolight, first of all, I thought we were always going to be a DJ equipment supply company. But furthermore, I only ever intended us to have our own brands. So, stocking the likes of Allen and Heath, Netgear, ADJ, etc., really is actually a surprise to myself.
So ADJ is a bit of a full circle moment, because in the early days I know that some of ADJ's products we were distributing. Obviously we kind of stopped that, and then in the last year we've started distribution again with ADJ. So how did that come about in the first place? Why did we stop, and where we are today with them?
Yeah, that was a surprise when I was contacted from ADJ to discuss the distribution. In the early days, we used to take the actual American audio products via American DJ, now ADJ, for the UK. We did that distribution for a few years. Subsequently, they decided to handle distribution into the UK themselves. Followed then by handing over to another distributor. That was when I got the contact to say, "Are we interested in taking it over?" I was really surprised, and it was, like you say, truly a full circle. What was really nice though was there was still some of the actual staff there who had remained friends with myself over the years. Yeah, so it was actually really nice actually reconnecting, and especially not just on a personal level but now on a business level again.
Yeah. So if we move over to events we've showcased at and our industry presence, what was the first major showcase or trade show we exhibited at? Where did our products first hit the market? And yeah,
that we're probably going back to around 1993. And it was, believe it or not, it was Plaza in London. I took the actual discotheque brand of products we were importing from Poland, and it was one full stand, just dedicated to. I think there was only about 8 products in the range. At the time, it was, wow, this is a lot of money we're putting into this show. But coming back from that show, it was amazingly successful for us. And that was a great springboard to get to start Prolight with unique effects that it was importing.
And where was the show based? Because obviously it's been at the Excel over the years. It's now at Olympia. So back in 1993, when you first exhibited, where was Plaza at?
Plaza was at Earl's Court, just around the corner from Olympia. So as we go back there, now to Olympia, you can guarantee that we actually still go past Earl's Court. Yeah. So actually it brings back a lot of memories. And at the time we didn't have, we're fortunate now to have a stand builder building our stands for us, but it brings back a lot of memories and a lot of long days of us actually building our own stands and effectively doing everything ourselves.
So how was our presence at industry shows like Plaza? Over the years we've had BPM, DJ Show North, etc. evolved over the years. Obviously we now help our distribution partners exhibit at ISE in Barcelona. And what roles do these events play for Prolight today?
Definitely in the early days, and whilst we're doing DJ lighting, we saw them as a sales outlet. And one, trying to increase our customer base, but 2, we would want to be at those shows taking orders.
Yeah.
As we look at it now, as we've moved, squarely into the events and installation industry, we really see all the shows as a networking event. We're not there to effectively sell product. We're there to showcase new items, and more so connect with people we may not have seen for a while. And generally just chat and share where Prolight's up to and what is due to be launched from them over the coming months.
I think especially from my side, looking at it, a big part of the Prolight culture is relationships, whether that be with suppliers, with customers. So would you say that building them relationships at shows is vital to us growing as a company?
Yes, for sure. And from my point of view, the one thing I do miss now, we touched on before me going into the warehouse, the other thing I do miss is actually not seeing customers. I don't see customers very often unless they're your visitors here at Edison Point. Generally, unless it's on the telephone, I'm not actually meeting customers where I was out seeing customers in the early days.
Yeah.
And I had far more customer contact because we only had a small base of customers.
Yeah.
So actually to be able to go down to the shows, connect with people who, some are people that have been dealing with us for 20 years. Other people are accounts that have only opened in the 12 months. It's also really, really nice for me to hear the amount of positive comments I receive regarding the staff and how good Prolight staff are.
Good. So, just before we finish, reflecting back on the last 30 years, what would you highlight as defining moments or achievements for Prolight?
Wow, that is a difficult one. Genuinely, I'm going to find this difficult to answer. I definitely think the moment we came to view Edison Point for moving here, and we looked at the site, we stood looking at 10 acres and this enormous building set in some beautiful countryside on a lovely summer's day.
Yeah.
Of, wow, this is incredible. This could be our new home.
Because how many thousand square foot did you say it was back when you were at Bury?
We started when I came from retail in Bolton. I had 2,000. I remember it well. 2,220 square feet, but that was my retail store, which then we obviously tried to turn into distribution.
Yeah.
And then we went to 6,000 square feet, which I thought at the time, I've hit the big time.
So from 6,000 square feet to 10 acres worth of site is a huge difference.
Yes, and as we're still looking at the building, and two, the potential that we can actually add to the site going forward, and I don't have to keep moving every 7 or 8 years. It really was, a watershed moment in, I cannot believe how far we've come, and even how have we got here to be able to consider moving to Edison Point.
Yeah. And is there a particular milestone or turning point that you feel really shaped where the business is today?
I don't actually think there's been one. I think it's been a whole a culmination of things, including staff.
Yeah.
I am amazed when I look round now at the staff, and some of those staff now have been here 10, 12, 14 years. And when I look over the moves we've had, the distance some of those staff are travelling an hour and a half each day, and they do this 5 days a week, year after year now, it's absolutely incredible. So, the staff still make it for me when we come in, and the great relationship we have with the staff. But again, it's the products. With the product range is still evolving. I still genuinely love the trip out to China to go and visit the suppliers. I love being involved in that. There's just so many things, and I've got to say, every week there's usually something happens in Prolight that I wasn't expecting happening, and it actually has kept me coming back to work with a smile on my face every Monday morning, wanting to find the next great item.
Yeah.
To suppliers in the industry.
What about you, Brad? What are your key milestones?
Wow. I don't even know where to start.
What do you think are the big moments since you've been a part of the company in terms of growth and stuff?
I think definitely the shift from a more DJ focused range to a more event focused range. I think that is a key milestone. The direction the business started taking, the products that we added from there on out, whether, like Andrew said before, that be the trussing, the staging, the rigging accessories, that really grew the business. Moving to Edison Point, the site we've got here, the investment we're putting into the equipment in the warehouse, etc., just prepares us for growth for the future. And I think these key points, these key milestones, and plans that Andrew over the years has laid, will keep us going for a good number of years, to further grow and expand the business.
I'm sure, Bradley, though, you will have obviously realised that although it's our 30th anniversary this year, and coincidentally, your 30th birthday as well, by sheer coincidence. I think with that in mind, it's probably now a good time to say, Brad, I actually want to hand the company over to yourself to run. And you take it forward now, hopefully, for the next 30 years and continue to build on what Prolight has become within the industry.
Yeah, and I wouldn't love anything more than this. I think over the last, I've been here now 12 years, it's just approaching, and obviously I see you most days because you're my dad, but it's not the relationship we have at work, working together closely, there's banter, there's hard work, but I feel like we've really got the business to where it is, and I'd love nothing more than growing the business. Even if I could just grow the business again to what you've got to today, would make me happy and proud. So
and I, I've got to be honest and say that over the actual years you've now been here and grown in the company, working your way through all departments to have a great understanding of everything that goes on here, I honestly, genuinely believe that the coming years are looking incredibly successful for Prolight.
But I think that goes back to the ethos and the lessons that you've taught, not just me but other members of staff from the start, that you've got to be involved in all areas of the business to gain a good understanding before you can move ahead and help run the business. There's no point running it if you only know one area. You've got to really understand the whole business inside and out.
Yeah, for sure. And literally, I've always been a firm believer of lead from the front.
Yeah.
And don't expect others to do the tasks that you won't do yourself. And I still firmly believe that now. And ultimately, that has stood us well over the years.
Yeah.